Hello, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride, and today we're looking at another submission by Liz and Ellie. Now, this submission we had a little mix-up in the send-ins, but the previous video, that is Ellie sub 4, was actually 2 months ago, so this is 2 months after that. And she'd really had made big improvements in the last one. But we see here now that she's working without the shambone. And it all seems to be going quite well. The stretch is coming very nicely. Could be a little more active right there. Once again, I would like to see the step just a little more active than it is here, but it improves here as we go on. Little glitch there. Now this walk is starting to look much better. Now here it's starting to swing nicely. Head and neck nicely reaching out forward. And once again, we just remind ourselves about the conformation of this horse. Once again, this is never going to be a horse with a really high head and neck set due to the way her neck comes out of her body. And once again, that's the biggest mistake we see people making with horses all the time, is trying to make them into something that they're not by trying to shape the head and neck into an ideal that they have instead of shaping the back end. But that's not what's happening with this horse. She's starting to swing really nicely over her back here in the walk. Good leg yield here. The rhythm stays quite nice. Very nice and in rhythm, exactly what we want to see there. So once in a while she could be stretched a little bit deeper, but she comes up and down a little bit, but you're doing a very good job of getting her back into that position again, and once again without the shambone now. So that's very good. You made a big step forward that she's understanding this and is able to keep it there without the use of the shambone, which however can be very good, and I think was a very good way for you to start. Once again, the shambone is a little bit like having training wheels for riders in the sense that the horse can't get too far out of whack while you're trying to learn how to feel this. Now this is a really good walk that you have here. Your back is swinging very nicely with it. Once again, your reins are kind of long there. It's okay for this kind of schooling riding. Now I go ahead and shorten them up a bit from where you have them there. You're getting them kind of long back behind you, a little too long, but you do shorten them up right there. So exactly what you want to do. But once again, remember that this is schooling riding. We want to get to the point where we ride our horses just with our hands up where they normally would be, just above the withers there. But once again, in teaching the horses all these things, we have to use different techniques. So we can't always ride the way we would want to ride when the horse is completely trained, of course. And of course, that's the biggest problem that I see in most people teaching riding these days, is they're teaching somebody on a hollow horse that isn't moving right, and they're trying to get them to hold their body in a position as if it were. So everything ends up rather confused. So pretty good shoulder in here. So again, you want to keep that outside rein against the neck there a little bit. Look how you just let her straighten out there. That was good. The wonderful thing about the walk is you can just do a lot of it. You can really take our time to get the horses really through and really stretching, and we can really learn to feel that. It's so important that we learn to give to that weight of the rein what it feels like to have the horse continue moving underneath us. So that's the beauty of the walk, is we can do a lot of it when we're just learning how to ride. It's really the most important gait in the beginning, and there's really not much point in getting out of it if you can't ride the walk. There's not much point in going to the trot, Kind of like we say about horses, if they have a bad trot, they better keep them in the walk for a while. If they have a bad canter, keep them in the trot. So that was really good. She's keeping a good rhythm throughout all of this. I just love the relaxation. You had sent me some photographs of this horse acting out, obviously from being in too tight a frame. And look how nice and relaxed the horse is now becoming. Now look how she's really reaching. You can really see that whole top line stretching now from the pole up to the withers. That's really nice. Could be a little more active right there, but once again, it's enough. Good swinging and activity in the walk here. So once again, once you get the horse where you want it to be, all the way down there in that stretch, try to start getting in the habit of just bringing your hands back together in front of you. But once again, remember, we're not going to be able to keep a horse straight until it's over its back. So it's why it's so important to do all this stuff and why we have to do this accordion work with our hands and that sort of thing. And just do whatever we can get to get the horse into that stretch so as we learn to maintain contact. Because once again, we're never going to be able to straighten a horse who isn't lifting its back. If the horse's back is down and hollow, it's very stiff and rigid and almost impossible to bend. So once again, always longitudinal bend comes before lateral bend. So we don't even concern ourselves much with it. And once again, because we don't, it's kind of, it's a self-healing process, so to speak. As the horse gets rounder over its back, it just becomes straight. So we don't have to fight a horse into straightness. In fact, I don't think you can fight a horse into straightness. I don't think you can fight a horse into a bend. You can't force a horse to bend whose back is hollow. You can force the neck over to one side, and you can kind of even force the haunches over to one side. But when we talk about true bend, we're talking about the horse lifting in the middle of the back and bending the entire length of its frame, not just at one point or another, like sort of cocking the hindquarters around the leg, which we see some horses do quite stiffly, but they don't really bend in the middle of their bodies. And once again, when they do, it's only getting them to lift up to the back that we get everything to release and we get that beautiful walk. And once you get the feeling of these true working gaits, that is the point at which the horse actually can work optimally over its top line, you know, it's something that you just get addicted to because it feels so great. Once again, even if we're riding in a ring, when we get that feeling, we get that feeling of being lifted up. We get the feeling of flying, so to speak, you know, or surfing, because we feel that power underneath us, you know. So once again, to ride a hollow horse is like surfing in the chop. In other words, after the wave has broken, most people have been out and at least body surfed a little bit. So you know how you wait till the wave breaks, but then it's lost its power. So we want to be able to get that wave up underneath us and maintain it. So it's like a continuous ride. It's like a surf ride instead of 5 seconds, as most of them are. You can go on for 30 minutes. Pretty good shoulder in here. She could use a little more angle, and you can see how she kind of stiffened in that, but that's okay. You want to just think of these exercises as something that you never want to try to improve too much in a day. You can see how it's getting a little short here as she gets to the end of that. So then we want to come back to the stretch. So we want to try a lot, in the great immortal words of Capitaine Boudin, you know, ask for a lot, be satisfied with a little, however, and reward often. And if you follow those rules, you just always come back and get the horse stretching. So we try lots of things that might shorten the horse up, and as soon as we do, we just come back to the stretch, as soon as you feel that gait begin to shorten. But what you'll notice here in a little bit of time, like anything else, nothing is ever perfect in a day. Just like if you tried to sit down and learn how to play the piano in a day, it won't work. You won't be able to do it, no matter how strong you are. You know, once again, that being the biggest mistake that people make with horses is thinking that because they're strong, they should just be able to do all this stuff. Well, their backs are quite weak, just like ours. Takes a lot to strengthen them, where they really become strong over their backs and able to do all the things that we want them to do. But they can in time. Now, this was really nice how you came down that shoulder in. I saw her get a little rounder there. That was really quite nice. Now, once again, it got a little slow after that, so we'd want to come back and open it up a little bit more. Back to this leg yield. Pretty good there. This is a little better, rhythm not so much. So we can see that the rhythm is much better in the leg yield than the shoulder in. So that's why we want to stick mostly with your leg yields, and why we always start with the leg yield every day. So what you're seeing pretty soon is you'll have a good leg yield and your shoulder in will still be not so good. Then pretty soon you'll get a good shoulder in as well, and then pretty soon you'll get to a good half pass and good haunches in and those kinds of movements. But we just ask for a little bit each day rather than trying to make it perfect, because we know this horse isn't fully over its back yet, so how could we expect very much? We can't, and that's where people get into difficulty with horses, is not recognizing what the horse is actually capable of doing on any given day. You know, that's what equestrian tact is. The ability to read a horse, to feel it, and understand what it needs that particular day. Good shoulder in here, and once again showing very nice bend there. Now once again, the difference between a leg yield and a shoulder in is simply that the horse is bent the entire length of his body. So in this particular shoulder in, that's pretty good, and you could pretty much call that a shoulder in as opposed to a leg yield, because the horse is starting to bend there and kept quite a good rhythm. So that was really quite nice in that one. Really stepped up underneath herself throughout. She could have been a little bit lower in the frame, but not bad at all, really. And I like how you come back once again. You try something, then you come back to the stretch. Reestablish the big forward swinging walk. There's really all there is to it. And what you see is that, you know, each day, each of these things gets a little easier and a little easier for the horse to do as it gains strength. This stretch could be a little bit deeper. I think you could take a little more contact there and just soften her a little bit more, and you'd get a little more. Remember that when the horse is in the stretch, you want to feel like you have a positive contact with the mouth of the horse, and you want to feel that soft suppleness of the jaw throughout. So riding in the stretch is not riding on a loose rein. It's riding in the same contact that you ride when the horse is up. It's just the horse is in a different frame. But you want that same feeling as much as possible, the horse being soft through the jaw and poll, and maintaining that as the horse goes down. And once again, once it's there, yes, we want to release to the weight of the rein, but we don't want to throw any more than that, which is the hard thing to do, that is to release to the weight of the rein and not give away another 5 inches as well, or whatever the case may be. But you're doing a very good job here with this. Another good leg yield. Leading nicely with the shoulder and coming rounder through the exercise. And once again, that's how you know when you're on the right track. You know, when the horse is working over its back and you do a leg yield or shoulder in, you should feel the horse getting rounder. If you feel the horse getting hollower, it means they probably wasn't ready to work at that level, and you need to lower the head and neck and go back and try less angle. In other words, less. So when it's really good, like that one shoulder in you had there was really nice, that the horse really continued to step up and the horse looked rounder over the entire length of its body when you finished it. Another good leg yield there. Once again, developing really nicely. Now, I think you could have got her to just soften there. I would have liked to have seen her soften and have her head and neck a little bit lower when you started that trot, but it wasn't bad. And once again, you didn't try to hold her in any kind of frame as you went. But I think she would have kept the frame a little better had her pole been a little bit lower when you started. But once again, this horse is still looking, you know, without the sham bone here even, it's still looking quite good, and you're getting over its back most of the time. It's a little slow right there. We need to send her on. You can see how she's kind of pulling a little bit with the front leg, so that's not quite enough forward activity. So in this case, you would just need to get after a little bit, touching with your leg or your whip, as the case may be, and just asking for a little bit, because this is too slow here. So this is starting to where she's just kind of dropping out behind and kind of pulling a little bit with her shoulders. So we need a lot more activity here. There you go, more like that. Now it's starting to get a little better here. So once again, if you don't have the horse at least moving actively and fluently in a straight line, there's not much point in trying to do that leg yield yet. So just get her a little more active before you start into the lateral movement, so you can keep a little better rhythm there. Now once again, this is you have increased it here a little bit, so this is better than it was. Still just needs a little bit more, and she could use to be a little bit deeper. Once again, I think she's maybe not quite ready for those shoulder in yet as much as she is the leg yield. I'm not saying not to do them. I'm just saying I don't think they're going to be that good yet. Whereas the leg yield is probably more like about what she's really capable of doing, and doing it really well. So once again, I'd just like to see you open it up and move her a little bit more forward here than this. That's the biggest part of your problem, is she's just not quite active enough. So you need to give her a little encouragement to just swing and get a little more active forward. The same thing in this shoulder in, just not getting a whole lot, you know, just not quite enough. She's just not deep enough over her back yet for those to be very useful. So while your leg yields look pretty good, those shoulder ins in the trot are just kind of, she's getting too slow and just kind of pulling with her front legs a little too much. So in that case, which is you need to do what you're doing here, which is what you did do, is just come back and send her back forward again. You're just not quite getting her as forward. You know, I think you could just give her a little sharper tap with the whip there and just get her a little more active than you're doing. But now this is starting to look pretty good here. This is much better. And now she's starting to get a better stretch too, and we're seeing a little more swing. And we see how we start to see, you know, the more active you get her there, you see how we see a little bounce, as I like to say, in the back end. It looks like she's starting to have a little spring in her step. But it could still be a little bit more. So that's a pretty good leg yield there. And once again, she doesn't lose so much. So I think really the leg yield is what she can do best. Once again, I'm not saying don't do the shoulder ins, but do mostly the leg yields at this point until you get them a little more fluent, and then, you know, try the shoulder ins. I'm not saying not try them once a day or something, but do what you did there. As soon as you feel her shorten up, just send her back forward again. but certainly try it every day, and it will get better. Now, once again, this trot's looking better as we're going. The trot's getting better and better. It's getting more swinging and active. She still wants to fall out on you here and there. You know, and the good news is she's really lost all that irregularity that I saw in that way earlier tape that you had sent. So this is really good and a big improvement. And once again, without the Shambo. Now, you know, don't be afraid to use the Shambo if it helps you a little bit when you're riding. It's perfectly fine, you know, to keep it on a little while longer. So maybe you want to, you know, use it some days, not use it some days to see how you're feeling. But once again, you know, you're getting her pretty much there now. That's a better trot now. So my advice to you is in the beginning, just start off, you know, don't do any lateral work at all till you at least get her moving as active as you have her right here. Then you have a chance of getting some lateral work that's going to have some real value other than just moving to the side. Remember, if it loses too much rhythm, it really isn't very good, and it also can be harmful to the horse's legs. I mean, lateral work with a hollow horse, once again, why we see so many leg problems in horses today. People are doing all this dressage with hollow horses, and of course, that if you do that, you know, all these movements and all that side lateral motion and stuff will really do a lot of damage. You know, if your horse isn't correctly balanced over its back. So Canter here is still a little flat. It's not terrible, but it's a little flat. She's not really jumping. It's kind of a flat-footed Canter, but she does, you know, she's not just totally sprawling herself out. She actually carries herself pretty well. And I can see that actually, you know, this horse has really nice conformation. You know, that Canter's a little better there. She starts to swing a little better. That's what we're looking for. I still wouldn't do too much of the Canter, but it's good enough that you can Canter, you know, to some good effect. Maybe not even every day yet. You know, once again, I don't think it helps her enough, you know, that I'd want to do a lot of it. This is a horse that needs to develop more strength in the trot, and then you're going to see that Canter develop a great deal more than that. But it's not a bad Canter in that it's not, you know, it's good enough that you can do it, you know, every day a little bit or every couple of days, however you feel like it. But just know that the trot work, and as you get her stretched deeper and more active and stronger, that disability in the Canter there is going to go away. But once again, she's not just totally like forebeating or anything like that. So, you know, her Canter is good enough that you can do it a little bit, but just not good enough to do a lot of it, if that makes any sense. And as she gets softer and rounder over her back and can stay over her back better and on the bridle, then you'll start to increase the time you spend in the trot. Just like we do in the trot here. You know, we start out with the walk and get her stretching, and then we do a lot less trot work. Well, it's the same kind of thing, you know. As we go up the gears exponentially, we can spend less time doing them. Obviously, the trot and, of course, the Canter is a lot more hard on the horse's legs. And especially if we do anything wrong, it's going to be a lot more increased pressure on the horse's legs. So coming back to this trot, once again, she got a little hollow here and just a little slow, and just kind of we lost it after that Canter, which also makes me think that the Canter isn't that all that valuable for her yet. Because she came back, and, you know, once again, sometimes I see horses that come back from the Canter and the trot looks better, you know, even if the Canter isn't that great. It actually kind of came back in a heap after the Canter, which tells me she doesn't really have a lot of strength there. But everything is progressing really in the right direction. Same thing here with the sitting trot. I wouldn't do much of that if you can get her to stretch a little deeper, but I don't think she's really quite ready for that. She's not really swinging through her back enough right there, so all she was really doing is dropping her back out from underneath you. So I would stay off of that for a while until you can get her to really get stretched deeper, and then you want to start sitting to the trot when the horse is all the way down and stays stretched into that contact. So great work here today. Once again, this shows much improvement. Every time I see you, it's looked better and better and better. And even compared to the one that we just put up, which had you riding in the Shambone, this was a big improvement over that and without it. But once again, we still just need to get her a little bit deeper, and I wouldn't be afraid to go back and forth with that a little bit. That is, use the Shambone sometimes and sometimes not. Great work. I look forward to seeing your next one. Keep it up.